Welcome to the Fast Mode podcast series. I'm Tara Neal, and with me today is Sridhar Kuppanna, CEO of ST Engineering iDirect. ST Engineering iDirect is the global leader in satellite communications, providing satellite technology and communications solutions. In December last year, Sridhar Kuppanna was named the winner of the CTO of the Year title in the Global Solution Provider category at the Fast Mode Awards 2025. Welcome, Sridhar. Great to have you on today's episode.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Glad to join you.
Awesome. Okay, so last year you won the 2025 CTO of the Year. So how do you feel about that, and what did that recognition mean to you professionally and personally?
It meant a lot to me personally and for all of us at iDirect. More than a personal accomplishment, I would say it was a recognition of what we achieved as a team. It was a recognition of the innovation that we were able to bring to the table, and also about the industry itself, because satellite is no longer just a niche industry, but it's becoming more and more part of the global connectivity fabric. So the innovation that we are driving validates our leadership position to bring satellite to the forefront, to drive towards more open, standard-based, interoperable architectures, and really highlights the breakthroughs that we have done to bring multi-orbit, standardized 5G-NTN solutions and driving convergence between terrestrial, non-terrestrial network and driving the industry transformation to the future.
Wow. Like what you pointed out, the satellite is no longer a niche. It's actually becoming, a core portion of the connectivity, the ecosystem. And, we see a lot of talk about convergence, and I guess, it's such a timely win. So coming off that win, how does it feel stepping into this next phase of leadership now that you are the CEO? Especially at this pivotal moment for the company, especially following the launch of Intuition?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The industry itself is at an inflection point where we are seeing the satellite, telco, and the cloud industries converge. And it's an exciting time in the industry. There are lots of challenges and opportunities. I'm really looking forward to stepping in, converting the innovation that we were driving as part of my previous role as a CTO, and working towards commercialization and driving the go-to-market aspects of it as well. It's going to be very important for us to continue to build on this momentum and work with the partnership ecosystem in order to realize this vision. I strongly believe that the Intuition platform that we have recently launched, it lays the foundation for what's coming for the future, especially for the ground infrastructure. We are extremely pleased to see the feedback that we have received from our customers and positioning of the product itself and the problems that we can solve and drive the industry forward. So I'm really looking forward to the next phase of our journey here as a CEO.
Wow, that sounds really, exciting. And coming back to Intuition, right? How can telcos achieve a truly seamless integration between satellite and 5G terrestrial networks?
Yeah, so I think in order to achieve a seamless integration, the first step would be to really not look at the satellite network and the telco network as two disparate networks. They need to be visualized, and they need to operate as a single network, which essentially means that when you look at the terrestrial networks, you have the antenna, you have the ground infrastructure, and satellite has to become just a natural extension of this network. So whether basically the onboard processing that you have on the satellites will just become just like your antennas on the terrestrial side, but it's just sitting
Yeah.
in space. And the ground infrastructure should be able to seamlessly switch between the ground terrestrial antennas and the satellites themselves and enable seamless roaming between these two infrastructures. So that is what seamless really means. And in order to accomplish that, the satellite industry must move towards a more standardized infrastructure in order to be able to interact and interoperate with the terrestrial network.
Wow. So, you mentioned and highlighted this very important point that satellite should be seen as a natural extension and not really like an additional element that needs to be developed from scratch, or needs to be, what we call it, scaled differently in a separate stream. So it comes naturally. It's just like, rightly pointed out, that's the vision, right? It's just like you're installing another base station. So you're just installing another small addition, another small node. So you've spoken on the topic of AI, for NTN, and the idea of self-healing satellites. So how close are we really to that becoming a reality?
AI is going to play a pretty significant role moving forward in the telco industry overall as well, right? So as well as satellite industry. Now, if you really think about how the operations happens today, so typically in a network, you have a BSS system, you have an OSS system, you have an NMS system, you probably have multiple EMS systems. And each of these things are managed by different groups of people. And specifically, the NMS and the EMS are provided by various platform vendors. And the customers have to figure out a way to understand these technologies, different APIs, and different systems, and then integrate under a common OSS BSS umbrella. And each of these things needs expertise, and they need to have technicians who are subject matter experts on all these platforms to bring them all together. So that's a pretty complex undertaking, right? So I think as part of the whole AI adoption, I do believe that we are going to move more towards intent driven architecture, which means that you're going to see the customers getting business requests to where a customer may come and ask to subscribe for a service plan. And automatically, from the service plan requirement that they get from the end user customer, there are a sequence of agents that will automate the entire workflow to deliver that service to the end user. So instead of having manual intervention between the OSS to the BSS to the network management and the NOC people all working manually through a ticketing ecosystem, we are going to see that these things are going to be connected through agents and automated, so that from the service request to service delivery, you're going to see a much more streamlined automated ecosystem. And with the Foresight product that we recently launched, that's our vision to bring this under a single umbrella, right? The second aspect of it, which you talked about from a self-healing, comes as a second step, right? So once the network is up and running and the service delivery is implemented, then the next step here is all the alarms and traps and logs and all the events that are going to be generated by these systems need to be understood, need to be evaluated for any problems in the network. And what do you do in order to rectify those problems? Today, that's an extremely manual process. You get all this disparate information from many, many different network elements. The formats are not standardized, and someone needs to sit there and look at these thousands of alarms that are being generated by the system, analyze them, root cause them, and then figure out how to rectify their situation. So with the foresight and with leveraging AI, we can bring these data set together under um, the agentic AI ecosystem, being able to detect anomalies, root cause the problem, and suggest mitigations, and automatically apply the mitigations to ensure that the network continues to run smoothly without having to go through a manual process and be reactive. So we can move towards more predictive, proactive way of rectifying these problems and making sure that the networks can heal themselves when we run into some of these issues that are pretty common issues, and ensure that the network continues to run and meets SLA commitments that the operators make. So if you look at the telco, it's a 5-9 commitment that we make from a availability point of view. The SATCOM industry is not there. So we do expect that by leveraging AI and the technology stack that we are bringing forth with Foresight, we can evolve the industry more towards where SATCOM today is, which is typically 99.7 to 99.9 to a 5-9 architecture and a more highly available, resilient architecture.
And I guess, that will push satellite to the forefront as the convergence happens in the next, next few years. And talking about, the next few years, let's take a timeline of 3 to 5 years where we see this convergence, basically intensifying. How do you see the ecosystem evolving? Because we know a lot of players will have to come together to make this convergence happen. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think over the next few years, I think it's a pretty exciting time in this industry. So what I expect to see is that the satellite industry will move away from bespoke solutions and bespoke hardware-based solutions and move towards more solutions that are going to be using standardization. So today we face economies of scale because of the bespoke solution when we look at the hardware requirements and how the solutions are delivered, we are not able to achieve economies of scale. So I expect that the industry will move towards more standardization. We should start seeing more common chipsets that are being used, and the solutions are deployed more on COTS platforms, which should give us the ability for multiple vendors to partner and provide solutions that are going to be achieving the economies of scale and bringing the cost down for our solutions. I do expect that our customers will also move more towards public cloud, private cloud in case of air gap systems, and evolve towards a telco cloud kind of an architecture as well, right? And most importantly, as we move towards the standardization world, it's important to have ecosystem partners. You are going to get components from different vendors. So you may be in a situation where the terminals are provided by vendor A, but the network is operated by vendor B. And the vendor A's terminals need to interoperate with vendor B's network, and vendor B's network should be able to support multiple terminals from different vendors as well. So that's where we are going to be going. I do believe that as we move forward here, we are going to evolve more towards software-defined satellite, software-centric architecture for the ground, and we are going to move towards more of a unified orchestration and management ecosystem across all these orbits. And if you really think about it, our customers really don't care as much whether we are using a geo orbit or a MEO orbit or LEO orbit. They are looking to get the SLAs and the
Yeah.
experience and the quality of service that they care about, right? So our job as infrastructure providers is to work with our customers to provide that experience to our end users. So you're going to see a lot more streamlining of operations, streamlining of service delivery, and more evolution towards common architectures, which is more standardized and more interoperable in order to give the same experience for our end users. You certainly don't want a situation where if the service is delivered from infrastructure A, used from a vendor A, the customer gets a certain experience versus you go towards a second vendor B's ground infrastructure for the same satellite and they get a different experience, right? So that is not going to be the outcome that we are going to be looking for. We're going to be looking for a more streamlined, consistent experience that delivers multi-orbit service seamlessly to our end users without the customers actually having to pick and choose between these multiple orbits or different operators. They should be able to seamlessly switch and get the service that they need.
And I guess, when we are in a converged environment where we have terrestrial and non-terrestrial networks working together, like what you pointed out, customers, they don't really care if it's geo or LEO. And I think with convergence, they won't care whether it's satellite or not satellite, because end of the day, they just want that experience, to be consistent. And I guess, you pointed out the importance of having these open standards and, being able to be interoperable so that, all vendors can come together and build this future that, we are hoping for. So I guess, a very exciting times ahead for the satellite industry at this point. And I guess that makes your stint as the CEO of, iDirect even more interesting. And I guess, we are somehow at the end of the session. So thank you, Sridhar, for joining us today and for sharing all these insights.
Thank you very much, Tara. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. And to everyone tuning in, thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more, visit www.idirect.net and follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next session. Bye-bye.